everyone. My name's Miranda Kennedy, and I go to Kansas City University. I am like between my second and third year. I'm doing a fellowship,
Thanks, Dave.
and this is my son Angus. I'm a, a student conference chair.
Hey guys, I'm Manny. I also go to KCU, and along with Miranda, I am also one of the conference chairs.
Hey guys, my name's Ariana. I'm a third year student at LMU DCOM, and I am the student publications chair.
Awesome. Is that everyone, I think? Cool. All right, well, we will get moving then. So tonight, this is kind of the agenda of the things we're going to be talking about. If anyone on here is not emergency medicine specific, this is still going to be great information. Of course, great information for our third years, as this is kind of your next step, and as well as second years, kind of formulating a program list. But this is what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the purpose of audition rotations. What is this next step? What should be your goals? We're going to talk about the SLO, which is a big part of those goals. We're going to talk about the timeline of third and fourth year. I'm a big person about kind of knowing things ahead of time. What should I be planning for next? As of course, all of you are if you're on this lecture tonight, which is always great. So what does that timeline look like going forward? I'm going to actually pull up my VSLO, and we're going to walk through it step by step on the website so you guys can see it. And then we're going to have a panel to kind of end the back half of the lecture about what it is creating a program list for the first time. You're kind of given this big list of residencies. How do I decide where to apply? We're going to have a great group of fourth year medical students hop on and talk about what they considered when they were going through it, because everyone's going to be different. So I think it's good to hear different perspectives. During this lecture, we have those fourth year students on. So if you guys have any questions, as we're going through this, I really encourage you, throw them in the chat, DM them directly. We have a couple of them on here, so please make sure to send them those questions. If you don't want to throw it in the chat with everybody, throw it to them directly. They're going to be answering them as we go along, so don't hesitate. All right, I like to always start off with terms to know because there are no stupid questions. And I feel like we have a lot of acronyms in our world, from VSLO to ERAS to sub-I, and you don't really know what they are. So let's just break them down real quick. VSLO, that's your visiting student learning opportunities. This is the program in which you apply for audition rotations. Audition rotations, away rotations, sub-Is, these are all terms that are interchangeable. A sub-I rotation just kind of means a rotation where the medical student is required to have the kind of responsibilities of an intern. So these have very strict criteria of kind of what makes it a sub-internship, but it's pretty much, this is a rotation where you as a medical student are going to have increased responsibilities. Now, when that rotation is done at a site where you want to go to residency at, it's called an audition rotation. But all of these terms are interchangeable. So sub-I, audition, I'm a sub-I student, I'm on audition rotations. Some people even call it clerkship, but mostly the osteopathic schools refer to them as auditions. Now, a SLO. There are a lot of different letters and things that you're going to collect. I've already maybe started collecting. I know you guys got your token, so you should be able to send requests to certain preceptors for letters, but a SLO is a standardized letter of evaluation. In the world of emergency medicine, that for us is the ESLO. The ESLO is the golden top of the cake of your application. It's a really, really strong letter on your application. It is a type of SLO. We're going to talk really quick about the different types of SLOs, but a letter of recommendation, a LOR. This is going to be someone from any preceptor, a EMS director, anybody like that is going to be giving you an LOR, letter of recommendation. And then as well as that, we have our letter of intent. The VSLO application may require you to send a letter of intent. So this is just a one-page letter stating your intent, whether that intent is to rotate at a facility, whether that intent is to secure an interview. I just asked Amber about, I have to send my letter of intent for my program, who I'm ranking #1. So letter of intent. And then ERAS, which is no more for you guys. You guys are going to be using residency CAS this year. So that is no longer out. So anytime you hear ERAS, that is now residency CAS for you. So I'm sorry if this is stuff you've heard before, but I always think it's good to throw in there before we start talking about kind of the nitty-gritty details. Goals of audition rotation. So I think there's a big 4 things that you guys should be getting out of these months, whether it be a month to 2-week period at these emergency medicine programs. But the first of which being feeling out the program, getting to know people. Audition season and residency application is like dating. You'll hear it referred to that a lot. But this is so you can kind of learn more about the people you're working with, learn about the residents. Do you vibe with them? Do you get along with them? Are you okay with being at the middle of the night at 2 a.m. stuck with them and working with them? Can you really see yourself at this program? So that's kind of the first thing is, do I fit here? What do I think of people? The second thing, that top right corner, you're going to be interviewed. This is a month-long job interview. So you got to put your best foot forward. They're looking at you as, can I hire Sarah as a member of my residency program? Would I want to work with her every single day? Is she clinically competent to be here? And do I see her being able to be a functioning member of this team? The third part is, of course, learning. I didn't do an emergency medicine rotation before my first audition rotation, so it was a ton of learning for me, but it's emergency medicine. So it's stuff you've wanted to do from the beginning. So you're going to learn not only the core curriculum of emergency medicine, sitting in didactics, seeing patients, but you're also going to learn a lot about the different types of ERs. I was shocked to see how different my one audition rotation was from my other one in terms of how they handled trauma, how they handled patients coming in, boarding, how they went through sign out, things like that. So you'll learn different types of ERs, which I think was the most helpful thing, kind of deciding where I want to see myself working in the future. And then the fourth goal of audition rotation, what I think is kind of the biggest one, is that letter, that SLO. And that's kind of what we're going to go into talking about. So a SLO is a standardized letter of evaluation. There's a couple different types. So you can see here the eSLO, that's the one I was talking about. This is a standardized letter from a residency program. And let me repeat that, a residency program. So that's just going to be a place with an established residency, not an ER who doesn't have one, not an ER doc who is associated with whatever. It has to be from the residency program. The purpose of this letter is so they can put it on your application and say, this is how Sarah performed from the aspect of a residency director who trains residents, who sees residents coming through against her peers. And that's why it's such an important letter to gain. I got a SLO from the first place I did my audition at. I didn't do an emergency medicine one before it, and it ended up being a strong SLO. So you don't really have to be ready to go and proficient in the whole world of emergency medicine. They want to see if you can show up and learn. So that's going to be your eSLO. So this is something you'll get on your audition rotations. An NSLO, this is going to be from a emergency medicine doctor. So for example, we have a small little community bed ED that's attached to my clinical rotation site. And I did a rotation with them and got a letter from that doctor. He's an ER physician, but he's not from a residency program. So that's going to be your NSLO. Subspecialty SLOs, this is going to be, again, a standardized letter of evaluation, but from a subspecialty of emergency medicine, whether it be ultrasound, peds, tox, that is what you would get from that rotation. Students do that rotation because, say, we'll talk about it a little later, you didn't get an audition rotation at this program that you wanted, but they have a tox rotation that's open. So you can easily go into that tox rotation, and that SLO, especially for that program, may show that, hey, they've been interested. They even did a subspecialty rotation for us. It gets you to see the hospital and interact with their faculty. And then an OSLO is going to be off service. So for me, I had an internal medicine doc who I worked really strongly with write that letter for me. I included it because she always had good things to say about me, and I wanted that to be shown on my list of letters. I had 2 SLOs, so I had a couple extra spots for that letter. Okay, so if you have any questions about SLOs, please throw them in the chat through all of this, but we'll keep moving on. This is kind of a big goal of your audition, is you need to get a strong SLO. When I was going through interviews, and I'm sure a couple of other 4th years can attest, they brought up the SLOs a lot, like, oh, I saw you rotated through here, like, oh, it seems like you had a good time, they liked you. So they really rely on these letters, especially if you don't audition with them. This is an example of this SLO. This is actually from a booklet that is given to you by EMRA. I have it on the next slide linked, but this is what it looks like. So you can see it is a quantitative, not qualitative evaluation of how you did. So every shift you'll work, so you work like 14 shifts in your audition, you'll get a little evaluation at the end of your shift. That'll be given to the doctors. They'll all sit down at the end, whether it be the program director, the APD, or the clerkship director, and they'll write this letter based on your evaluation. So you can see here, can you do an H&P? Can you do physicals? How do you interact with others is kind of part B. And then part C is where the residency director part comes into it. How would you rank them on your rank list? Do you think they'll kind of be in the top 10 percentile of students who come through an audition? You can see what else it kind of shows them, what they're using to evaluate on. So it gives you, we can compare apples to apples rather than apples to oranges. So I think it's good. before going into the game, that you know the rules of the game and how it's being played. So take a look at this before you start your auditions. This is a big part of them. So just something I wanted to plug. And again, of course, the Student Advising Guide by EMRA is a great resource. This is where I found this at. So wanted to plug that as well. Okay, here's a couple other examples of a SLO. They're kind of the same thing, but programs may have a little bit different format, but it's kind of all the same concept. Okay, so audition season is coming up. This is a really exciting time. This is what this VSLO is all about. So I know you guys are all excited. Like I said, it kind of starts really picking up after this. You have boards coming up, you have auditions that rolls into interviews, that rolls into match. So just get your big boy, big girl pants on, get ready to go. It's going to be a great time, but this is where we're headed. This is your timeline. Like I said, I'm a timeline person. I like to see where I'm going and what I'm doing. So right now we're in February of third year. If you're a third year on the call, VSLO is kind of getting in the process of opening. You guys will take your boards coming up, and then you'll go into audition rotations. So when you're planning these audition rotations, the sweet spot is really July through September. Some can go as late into January. Our fourth years are going to talk about when we did ours personally and kind of the layout and how we scheduled things. I was one of the later auditioners. I ended up doing more, but we can talk about that later. Residency casts, ERAS opened in September, so I'm guessing it's going to be around the same time. I didn't see exactly the date for you guys, but that'll happen in September. You'll roll into interviews when you get into the winter time. And then about a year from now, you guys will be sitting right where we are, getting ready to rank and celebrate this really cool time at the end of your medical school journey. So it's going to fly by really quick, but I just wanted to give you this, maybe give you some hope. The end of the tunnel's there, we can see it. So just keep moving, because this is one of the most important parts. We got to wrap up everything. So keep pushing, we're almost there. But we're kind of up in this start of a very quick but long marathon. All right, so VSLO. This is going to start accepting applications in March or April. The majority of programs do. You may have already seen some that have opened. I know I had ones that opened the first week of February. So there are programs that should be open. So if you haven't opened your VSLO, make sure that you're getting on that. Get on the software. Make sure you're logged in. Our school kind of sends us out a token and walks us through that. So if you're having issues, make sure you reach out to your school and make sure that website, if you haven't opened it, you better get on it. Each average student applies to about 5 to 7 programs. We'll talk about how many we each apply to, but that's the national average. CORD, which is the Council of Residency Directors, they recommend 2 audition rotations. I think it's like 70% of programs require at least 2 SLOs. So that is something to consider. 2 audition rotations means 2 ESLOs. Remember, ESLOs from the program directors. And that'll get you pretty good and set up for applying. You can do 1. People have applied with 1 SLO, but it always is good to have 2 and even 3 if you end up having an audition that kind of doesn't go super well, whether you don't vibe with them, whether it's just a tough time in your life. If you had that extra 3rd audition, you can kind of gauge whether or not your SLO is going to be good based on your interactions with the faculty and that audition as a whole. So things to consider, but we'll talk about that more at the end. Auditions, like I said, usually run from around July to September. So you finish your boards and then we're cracking. And then it kind of runs up to where your residency cast will open. Now, there's a couple requirements I'm sure you guys have seen or heard from students. These are things that are required to apply to these programs. So this is a generalized list from EMRA about possible requirements that could be on your application. I personally didn't have all of these requirements. Like, for example, I didn't do any that had a personal statement. But a CV 100% is a main requirement. So if you haven't started working on your CV, make sure you start working on it. We have some resources on ACOEP website about kind of personal statement, CV, things like that. A professional photograph, our school did one for us. If you don't have one, definitely need to get that. A recommendation from an EM advisor or like a department letter, some will require that. So it's always good to kind of make sure if a program does require it that you're reaching out to those faculty early. So this is all a timing game. So the earlier you have these things, the earlier you can apply, the earlier you can get your foot in the door to maybe get a spot. So that's a theme that you'll see. The earlier you can get this stuff, the better. A big thing too, vaccines, making sure all your titers are up to date, making sure you have them all in one location. There's going to be a lot of forms and a lot of things that you guys are going to have to send to people coming up. Make sure that and without better words to say it, your shit's together. Make sure that you have everything saved on your computer, saved on your iCloud. Everything is in its right spot. because you don't want to lose them. My computer like crashed in the middle of audition season. I was like, thank the Lord, everything saved on my VSLO because like it was gone. So make sure that you guys have these in a place where you can get it quickly. N95, drug screen, background check. A lot of my school did a lot of that for me. But if your school does not, make sure you're jumping on that.
Sarah, just to go back to that, I did have one that required just like a general letter of recommendation. It didn't have to be from an EM person. So just make sure that you have one from, it doesn't matter really where, like IM or whatever you're able to get. It's just like a requirement for some of them. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I had like one letter from like that I grabbed from an internal med doc like early on that I was like, maybe I'll use this for like my application. So if you guys have a favorite preceptor, it wouldn't help to maybe just reach out and be like, hey, would you mind writing me a letter if needed? If it's not needed, then at least you have it. Because like I said, this whole thing is a timing thing. But what I'm going to do right now is we're going to walk through my VSLO. So can everyone see my screen okay? You can see everything on VSLO? Cool. Okay. So this is my VSLO. You open it up, you see your dashboard, and there's a couple parts. If you guys have already started filling out this stuff out, great. If not, definitely jump on it. But we're going to go right over here down to personal information. No one steal my personal information, please. That'd be weird. But this is my personal information. You guys can go ahead and fill this out already. We got some questions about like these required requisitions that you guys are going to input. If you guys have any questions, make sure you ask your school directly. Make sure you have your dates down. I think I went in and like made sure, double checked with my evaluations that everything was right. But if you have any specific questions about like if you took like a board prep elective rotation, something like that, double check with your school. But you should have everything that you've completed that is a partner to your education. So even if it is like a board prep elective, like I put that into my required rotations, even though it wasn't like a core.
Sarah, before you do that, can I share my screen really quick to show them what my folder looks like with all of my
Yes,
stuff?
please. Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, getting everything organized was like a big game changer for me.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So I have like a folder for each year, and then documents, and literally everything is in PDF form. Like just create something like this just so that you have it handy, because you are going to be asked for all of this stuff so many times. So I suggest just making a folder and having it all there. And I still go into this folder for like, it's useful for residency applications too. So I suggest making something like this.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, like if you have it on like your computer, and then I even like, this is just because I'm a psycho and I like am afraid that the world is gonna end. I like duplicated and put stuff onto like my Google Drive. So I'm like, if my computer drives, like Google's gonna hold me down. Like I'm not having anything messed up, but that's just me. But let me share my screen real quick. We're gonna walk through my VSLO and what it looks like. Granted, I've already applied, so I won't be able to pull up everything that I want to, but I'm hoping this can just kind of give you a start and feel a little bit more comfortable. I feel like when I was searching through VSLO when I was applying, it's like you're afraid to press any buttons. It's like a ticking time bomb, but we will just peruse through mine to get you guys an idea. But like I said, your dashboard, your personal information, all of this you can complete now. And then this is just all for my home institution, but we're going to kind of start on, you are sitting down for the first time on VSLO and I want to find some programs. So for me, I was kind of the applicant where I knew I wanted to be Northeast. I'm from Ohio. That was a place that I thought. So I wanted to see emergency medicine programs in Ohio. So I'm going to go over to my specialty and I'm going to type in emergency medicine. Okay. I'm going to apply that filter. So this is going to give me all of the rotations that have something to do with the underlying umbrella of emergency medicine. This includes your subspecialty rotations like ultrasound, tox, things like that. A couple of places will even have like EM, like this one is MICU for the EM student, or ICU rotation for the emergency medicine bound student. Those would also be kind of go under your subspecialty as well. So emergency medicine, another thing, like I said, I'm from Ohio, so I wanted to see programs in Ohio. Okay, so this is my list. All right, it's giving me 5. I know for a fact there's more than 5 programs in Ohio, right? So that means that the programs that I'm looking for have not opened their VSLO yet. Like I said, I've already applied, so I don't know if this is showing exactly what VSLO looks on right now. So if you're applying in Ohio and you're like, oh, okay, only Cleveland Clinic's open. No, please double check for yourselves. But this is just what mine looks like. So I'm going to unsave this because I'm going to use it as an example, but emergency medicine programs in Ohio. If I was an EM student in emergency medicine, Ohio State, that's on my list. So I'm interested in Ohio State. I'm going to save this program. You can save programs that are not open to apply to yet. So if they don't have their dates in, they're not open yet, you can still save them. Now, sometimes programs will open on VSLO and open up for applications at the same day. So I'm going to show you in a second what your saved program's like. But on VSLO, you guys really need to be checking for your programs every day because they may open and you may not know it. And then you're going to lose that opportunity to get in the door first. But Ohio State, they're open. I can see right here that the first time they're going to let students in is in May. And the last time I can go in there is in August. Okay. So now I'm going to go over to my saved electives. Okay, so ignore some of these. I see right here, this is Ohio State. I saved it. If you guys want to make sure that this is an audition rotation or this is the one you're supposed to apply for, make sure you look here. So I'm interested in at OSU, emergency medicine at Ohio State. And if you scroll down here, here's all of your requirements, okay? So you can see right here that there's a lot of things that need to be done. So if I have a bunch of these already saved in a folder, I can pop these in the minute this program opens and be ready to go. Now this program is already open for me to apply to. I know that because I can see the dates offered, okay? So say I want to apply, all of these dates work for me. I just opened VSLO, Ohio State's my top program. All of these dates work for me. I'm gonna grab it and apply now, okay? So that is kind of how you can go from your saved list. But if we go back to our dashboard, I want you guys, you'll look at your My Application. We already filled all of these out. Add electives. So I already added Ohio State. But if I go back to my saved list, I can also add it from there. So you'll get an email from VSLO. If I saved Ohio State and it wasn't ready for me to apply to it yet, you will get an email from VSLO that says, as long as it's in your saved list, so you can see these are the ones that are in my saved list, it'll let you know, congratulations, a program is now open for you to apply to if Ohio State opens, as long as they're in my saved list. So even though they're not allowing you to apply right now, you guys need to put them in your saved list so you can get that notification from VSLO that they're open to apply, okay? So this is Ohio State, they're in my saved list. I'm gonna add my dates because I want to apply here. Now, VSLO, you can apply for multiple dates. So if this is a program that you're like, I'm really, really interested in this, I really want to audition there, apply for all the dates you can. Now, if it's a little further along and you're like, I already have an audition scheduled for this day, then you can go back in and do your dates. You're also going to be able to rank your dates, which I'll show you. So if there's one that works better than the other, you guys have that option as well. So I'm going to add this date. Okay, so this is the date that I really like. But guess what? All these work for me because this is my #1 program and I'm going to go whatever time they're going to take me. So I put in all the dates, okay? So now I'm going to go back over my application, add electives. Ohio State is there. So now if I have Ohio State, they opened today. I got the email. They're open. I'm on my thing. We're going to remove this so you guys can see better. Ohio State is open. I got the email. I go onto my VSLO. I have my dates and I'm ready to go. But I have a bunch of electives in my saved that haven't opened yet. That's okay. You guys are going to do this process every single time they open. So if you have a bunch that open at the same time, you can do them at the same time, okay? So Ohio State is open. I'm ready to go. I have my dates. Save and continue. Okay. Requirements. These are all the things that they require. Now this is showing incomplete for me because I have to get from my school, okay? But I have my resume filled in, immunization form. If they send you anything, like, oh, we need you to fill out this immunization form, just send it to your school. Don't try to fill it out yourself. Don't try to make it all complicated. Your school wants to help you. At least my school did a really good job of it, but ask them to help you out because they should be really helping you guys out during this. But if you have any questions, reach out as well. My USMLE complex. And then Ohio State requires a letter of interest. So this is kind of a specialty requirement for their program. A couple other programs may require it as well. A letter of interest is just going to be a page document saying, my name is Sarah and I'm interested in emergency medicine at Ohio State and I'd like to do an audition. I'm from Ohio. I like that they're an academic program, or I like their ultrasound I've seen, or I like that they have a med ed fellowship, or I want to live in Columbus. Whatever your draw to the program is, just blurb it. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. But remember, I mean, this is communication with a residency program, so that's going to be your letter of intent. If you guys have any questions, or you find yourself like, I don't really know what to write, email one of us, reach out to one of us on social media. We'll send you examples of letter intents that we've wrote. Because I know those are kind of like, what is it going to say? But it's just a letter saying, I'm interested, and here's why. Hope that I end up getting an audition rotation. Okay, so those are my requirements. I save and continue. Now I can't move on because these are incomplete, but preferences is going to be like, I applied for those 4 dates. I can rank them like 1 through 3 of the priority in which that I want to do them. It'll give you a summary of everything, and you'll pay and submit it. And now I've already applied to Ohio State, and the cycle continues. So I will keep a lookout on all of my electives to see what they are. And then once you do them, this is kind of your, let me go back to my dashboard, tracking. So you can see which ones, like if you get accepted to Ohio State and they send you paperwork to do, they'll do it on VSLO most of the time. You can kind of see like, oh, I have to fill this out for Ohio State. You can see all the ones that you've applied to and where they're at. So I'll just show you like the beginning. So I applied to Ohio State. So you can see this is where the time they gave it to me. The time that I decided like I want to go to Ohio State. We did post decision requirements, which was a lot of like me doing their EPIC training and me sending in specific health forms to them. And then the final. So this will show for kind of all of your awaiting my actions once you have them. But this is kind of how it works. In summary, like you really just kind of have to be on top of it. I knew that I wanted to apply to some Ohio programs. So like every morning I was like, I'm searching here, Ohio, emergency medicine. Like if I saw it, I was like, okay, no, they're not open yet. I'll check tomorrow morning. So that is how you go through your VSLO. You'll do the same thing every time that you want to submit. You guys just have to stay on top of it. But all the academic information, all of your requirements you can put in. When you guys go to put in requirements, so let me see. I was able to do it, I think, for this one. So let me remove, I think this one, let me go through and, okay, cool. Yeah. So this is what it, so now you can see the preferences. So ignore the withdrawn and accepted because I rotated at this place. So it's already filled in, but you can do that. But yes, I'm sure. Requirements. So you guys can see here, when you go to put an requirement, you can upload it from your computer or you can select it from My Documents. So the My Documents tab is a place where you're going to hold everything that you're uploading. So if you have your CV on there, I'm going to just click Upload Document. I did like Turley CV, put it in there. So you can reuse documents that you've put into other applications as well. So if you've already given a program your CV, it's already in your document list when you go to apply for another one. So if I go back here, requirements, I can add it in. So it's from My Documents, I want to look for like my CV, Turley CV, boom. I can submit that for that. Okay. So that's how that looks. Like I said, there's a couple of like specific things that programs may ask for, but in a nutshell, your CV is going to be a big one. Having a letter of rec on board, having a personal statement, at least maybe drafted, would be helpful. And kind of being ready to crack down if a program opens, being ready to send everything and having all your ducks in a row. 4th year is hard, but it's hard because you have to make sure you stay organized. Calendar, things that are due, things that programs need, because it really is a missed opportunity. They do it on a rolling basis. Okay, so does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions, or was there anything in the chat that anyone that I missed? No? Cool.
No, I think we've been answering them, but everyone feel free to unmute and ask whatever.
Yeah, just while I have the VSLO open, I'm going to go back to the presentation, but that's pretty much the rundown of it. And this is recorded too. So if you guys, I know this is a lot of information. If you want to go back and rewatch it and have it open when you're going through your own VSLO, the big thing I just wanted you guys to get out of it is you have to check for these programs to open, because just because they're not on VSLO doesn't mean that when they're on VSLO, they're going to open that day. But most of them were around March. I was a big person about, if I started my day, I woke up in the morning, I just checked my VSLO, like make it into your daily habits because it'll help out a lot. But these are some slides from Dr. Sappington. She's our previous DOSA. I just liked them. I wanted to have them in here so when we send out the PowerPoint, you guys can have them. But this just kind of has all of the different parts of VSLO and kind of how you go about looking for different rotations. So if you wanted to do like a toxicology specialty like rotation, you can look for that as well on VSLO. So we'll move through these. Yeah, a couple, like you'll see like the AAMC standardized immunization form was usually how they got all of your immunizations. My school, we just asked them to fill it out for us and they sent it back to us. I don't know how other schools are, but make sure you guys have your titers. Make sure your background check is done, your drug test is done and saved. Everything is on your computer because it'll fly by fast. This is an example of what the email looks like. So this was back in February when I was applying. I had saved this in my saved programs. The dates weren't open for me to apply yet, but I woke up. This is 7 o'clock in the morning. It's now ready to go. So now from 7:57 on, the applications they're taking are at a rolling basis. So the first one comes in, they're going to look at it, yes or no. Next, first one comes in, you know what I mean? So this is a good thing to have your notifications on your email and just make sure you stay on top of it. Commonly asked questions. How many should I apply to? So national average is around 5 to 7, no more than 10. It's 15 per application. So if you apply on VSLO, but you could apply to different dates, but like if I'm going to apply to Ohio State, it's going to be $15. So something to consider. It is a cost. 4th year is a cost. So if you can save money, do it when you can. We're going to talk about our individual kind of applications at the end, but when do I need to apply? Like we said, the day it opens, the day that you can get in there, send it. Okay. Can I drop an elective or will I get blacklisted? I dropped VSLO electives. Some come later in the year and you're already filled up and you're just like, you know what, like they got to me too late. They understand that. So you just need to make sure you communicate it and you communicate it early. So there was a program that I signed up to do an ultrasound and I ended up getting an audition during that time. So I wasn't able to do the ultrasound rotation and I took it off VSLO. I withdrew and I emailed the program coordinator and just said, hey, this is what's going on. There was a scheduling difficulty. Like, I'm very interested still. And I still got an interview to that program. So it's not going to ruin you. Like, is it the best? No, but it's not going to completely ruin you. I wouldn't cancel your number one spot. Like, that's your number one spot, but it's not the end of the world. Schedules get confusing. They come in at a rolling basis. So you're going to have to kind of juggle some things. If you get accepted to conflicting dates, so if I'm scheduled to be at Ohio State in October and I get another program that says, hey, we also want to have you in October, email the coordinator. A lot of the times they're just kind of using what's open and what works best to fill these spots, but that doesn't mean that there's not other times available. The program coordinator, I also think I want to plug this. That's the person, you guys, if you have questions about the program requirements, if you have questions about, are they on VSLO, like any questions throughout the process, that's always a great person to start to. Do not email the program director, do not email the PD or the residents. Like, the coordinator's email is on the website for a reason. This is not a doctor. This is not anyone who's like interviewing you. Like, be nice to them, but this is a person who's there to coordinate the program needs. So don't hesitate reaching out for them. I know 4th year is like walking on eggshells, but this is a safe person. So talk to them, reach out, be respectful, just talk early and you should be fine. Okay. So we're talking about, that's VSLO, what it looks like. It's a pretty simple thing. It's just a lot of stress because things open and close and you're trying to coordinate schedules, but just take a breath, stay organized, make sure all your ducks are in a row and it'll be fine. But there are 289 emergency medicine programs in the US, so you have a ton to pick from. Emergency medicine, thankfully for us, is a pretty good specialty in terms of the match. We had open spots a couple years ago. It's starting to kind of ramp up, but for you guys, it should be looking pretty good. But for me, when I sat down, you kind of need to find where to start. So these are a couple resources to kind of look at what are the residency programs that are offered in the United States for me to pick from. I have a couple pulled up here. So let me go. This is Frida. This is a way that you guys can kind of explore different programs and specialties. So let me go. We'll go down to emergency medicine. And there's also dual programs as well. So search programs. This was working for me earlier. Oh, it's because I'm not signed in. Okay. you know what, we will go back because I don't remember my password for that, but it's pretty much, it's going to show you a whole list. This is ERAS's, AMC's ERAS directory. This is kind of the same thing. You can see they're kind of organized by state. These are all the different residency programs that you can look at. So these are all the ones that are going to be using ERAS, okay? But for you guys, it's going to be Residency Cast. So I would work with mostly Frida and then also Residency Explorer as well. You can go on here, and this one's a really good one for looking at what programs have taken in the past. So they'll have these really nice graphics of like the DOs that they've taken in the past. What is the majority medical schools that they pull from? So like when I was looking up places in Michigan, they were like, oh, we mostly take MSU students. And I was like, okay, like, so you kind of know where they're pulling from. So these are all great resources. All the links are here. I'm sad I can't pull Frida up. I'll see if I can pull it up at the end, but Frida is a great resource to kind of start looking through all the different programs. You can pull up their page. They have their websites linked. But that is what I would use to kind of go about that. So we'll keep going. What should we look for in a program? So I'm just going to throw all of these up. We're not going to talk about all of them super in depth, but we'll just gloss over a couple of them. Third-year, four-year program, we're going to talk about that in a sec. Same thing with academic, community, and county. When I was looking at programs, and these are things you can ask residents, you can look on their website when they look at their curriculum, and we're going to pull up a website and look at it together so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But do they rotate at multiple hospitals? So they make you go downtown for your trauma rotation? Do they make you go to, for example, like Baltimore shock trauma? A lot of the Michigan programs, they go up there for a trauma month. So are you going to be traveling a lot of places? Of your PEDS experience, are you going to a PEDS hospital that's 45 minutes away? Fellowship offerings. So for me, I'm interested in medical education. So I would look and see if these programs had med ed fellowships. Do their residents usually go to fellowships? How much time do they spend off service? So off service rotations, meaning when you're not in the ER. This is a big one, I think, for all of us. Shift length. Are you working 12-hour shifts? Are you working 8-hour shifts? These are things you can kind of ask down the line. Number of shifts per month, same thing. Am I working 19 shifts as an intern, 18? That's going to be on their website. Longitudinal PEDS. This just means pediatric exposure throughout your residency experience. So some programs may just have you do like a month in the PEDS, and then some programs may make you do 3 shifts in the PEDS every single time you're on your ER rotation. So how is PEDS incorporated to, we'll talk about trauma, pay and cost of living in these places. If you're going to live in a big city, you're going to have to like pay some big city money. So these are things to consider on a resident salary. Moonlighting opportunities. So moonlighting being when you are working and getting paid outside of your resident salary. So when can you do this? Where can you do this are important things. And we'll talk more about that too when we kind of talk about specifics and programs and interviewing and stuff as that time gets closer for you guys. But another thing is whatever is important to you. I think this slide Alex made last year, and I loved the bottom of this because, I mean, this is your life. This is kind of your first choice to say, I'm living and working and doing a job. Where do I want to live at? And I think that's a big drive of all of us when you're looking at a program is location. But also just kind of what you want your lifestyle to be like. If you don't want to be outdoorsy and hike, maybe don't go to Utah or Jackson Hole, Montana. Like, you kind of have to feel it out for yourself. This is something that I wanted to just go over before we kind of get into the panel because I never understood it. And people always say, they're like, what kind of program do you want to go to? Like county, community, university? I'm like, I don't know the difference. So this is from the EMRA Student Advising Guide. Amber is flashing it right there. I think I also have a copy somewhere. Literally, all of their resources are great, but this is a great one if you're ever looking for a big resource to just say, what should I be doing right now? But this is kind of showing the difference, the different care areas being community, university, and county. So a community, let's start with university. So a university center, also called an academic center. This is going to be a big hospital. They're going to have a lot of specialties. So for example, I'd say Ohio State is a pretty academic center. They have a cancer center. A lot of these patients are coming to see their specialists. They get really sick patient populations, but they also have a lot of specialties. So they always have a vascular surgeon, like they always have these people to come in and do a lot of lectures. So they may have that very specific branch of GI that you're looking for a patient versus another place that may not have those resources. So that's what you're going to think when you're thinking university academic. They do a lot of training to kind of make teachers out of clinicians. So anyone interested in like teaching, academics, fellowships, usually kind of just wave towards the university side. but not to say that you can't do that with any of your training options. Now, on the backside of that is going to be community. This is going to be kind of your smaller hospitals that are more so they don't have those resources, so they can't really get the GI surgeon who specializes in that rare throat cancer that only Ohio State does to come down to the ED to evaluate your patient. They have a lot greater numbers of kind of unopposed residencies. So it may just be a shop that has an ER residency and a family med residency. I rotated at a place like that. So you don't have trauma surgery residents helping you out and coming down. So that'll change your training a little bit. And then county is kind of right in the middle. These are usually going to be in urban settings, usually with more underserved populations that have a little bit less resources. So you may see a lot of penetrating trauma. You may see a lot of those more urban setting issues versus a community that may be in a rural setting. So different patient populations, different problems, different outreach outside of the ER. I rotated at a county program and I noticed they had like substance abuse coaches 24/7. That was something I'd never seen at a hospital. These places are usually more focused kind of in their community that they serve versus kind of the academic research teaching side of things. But they all throw together. This is not a clear-cut list. You may have places that are very hybrid, but this is kind of what we're looking at. So I thought that was good to kind of throw in. You can do a little bit more research, but when I say different types of ER settings, this is what I'm meaning. How trauma is ran, I think this is kind of difficult to understand if you've never been in an ER. I had never understood why it was so important until I rotated. But trauma, these are going to be your patients who are coming in, your MVCs, your drownings, your stabbings, your gunshots, all of the above. And if you see here, there's a diagram of kind of how traumas are set up. So different residency programs do traumas different ways. So sometimes they may make the ER doc or the ER resident, they are always at the airway as an intern. The airway is only ran by the first year residency ER interns, and that's the way trauma is run. And then these side people in yellow, the exam doctors, you may do all the procedures. So if someone comes in and they need a chest tube, it's the ER resident's job to do that. Now at another facility, that role may belong to trauma, or it may be half and half. So half of the month ER gets to do all the procedures, half of the month trauma gets to do all the procedures. Who's running the traumas? Is it the attending? Is it always the ER senior? So these are things to consider. And then I have this link here to kind of show the differences in level 1 versus level 2 and 3 trauma centers. I think that was another thing I didn't understand. Granted, the way I look at trauma is you're going to get trauma everywhere that you go. People are going to walk in your ER because you are an ER. So if their car crashes outside, you're going to see the polytrauma. It may just not be as frequent and it may be ran differently. So you don't really know until you get there, but these are always good questions just to ask. But I like to do this because I didn't know the difference and why it was important, but this is just a glimpse of that. 3-year versus 2-year program. Oh, go ahead.
Can I hop in on that, sir,
Of
real
course.
quick?
Yeah.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, just because they're designated as a level 2 trauma center does not mean that they won't see level 1 type trauma. You can get fantastic training at a level 2 or even a level 3 trauma center, and odds are you might get better training than you might get at a level 1 that's at a university center, because you might not have all these other residency programs. They might be unopposed DM, and so you will get to do everything. So just keep that in mind as well, that ACS designates these trauma centers based on specific criteria that are linked, but that does not necessarily reflect in any way on the quality of the training you'll get.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I worked at a couple level 2 centers where we saw gnarly level 1 trauma walk in the door. And it's, I mean, you're, as an ER doc, you're going to get training in trauma. But yeah, the level 1 and level 2, it's just about kind of the resources that are on site that they can use. 3 or 4-year program. I rotated at both a 3-year and a 4-year program because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I asked this question to every resident, I think. And the answer that I got was, it depends on what you want to do. So the sweet spot that everyone says for emergency medicine is 3.5 years. So we're kind of stuck in a rut where it's like, do we go to a 3-year program, 4-year program? The opinion that I've gotten from 4th-year program residencies is that 4th year gives you the opportunity to learn how to be an attending, to manage an ER Because I mean, we're used to being a third year resident, but not an attending, looking over all the residents, working on, okay, well, all the trauma bays are full and this GSW's come in, where are they going? Like, who can leave? That decision is going to be made by the attending with the charge nurse. And that's something that you learn how to do with a 4th year program. It gives you also time to kind of set up to, where do I want to be after this? If you're still figuring out a fellowship, you can do more electives your 4th year to see if that's really what you want to go into. So that was kind of their pull on that. In terms of a 3-year program, I mean, it's money. So attending salary is different than residency salary. So money and finances are a big waiver in whether you do 3 years or 4 years. If you want to do a fellowship, some people say that they like to do a 3-year program because they're about to do 2 more years without that big salary. So it makes more sense for them. So it's really up to you. I encourage you, if you're not sure, ask people, because they may say something that kind of resonates with what your goals are. Like I said, this whole process is going to be very individual dependent, but that was kind of the vibe that I got off of it. I don't know if anyone has anything else to add or things that they've heard.
You can also become a great attending within 3 years. So that's
Mhm.
the counter argument.
Yeah.
Also, people that want to go into fellowships sometimes choose a 4-year program because they get more elective time so that they can get experience in that field. But I'm pro 3 years. I didn't apply to any 4 years.
Yeah,
I,
I think I applied to both, but I was like, 3 years is probably me too.
I will say that a lot of 3-year programs are now, because they recognize that, if you go to a 4-year program, you're going to have that time to basically be an acting attending for a year without the attending responsibility. So they will do like acting attending shifts during your 3rd year. And so they're trying to bridge that gap. So that's not necessarily a bad thing if you want to choose a 3-year program for other reasons. There are a lot of places where you can still kind of get that acting attending experience.
Yeah, especially I feel like too, if you're planning on just going in and working in the field and you don't want to do a fellowship, maybe that 4th year, I mean, I saw it as like, I am a person who I'm like, be a little scared to hop out, like, and then start work. Like maybe that 4th year might help me like dip my toe in the water. They do the attending shifts. Like Justin said, I watched a couple of residents do that on my shift. So there's things to consider, but don't let it deter you at all. I mean, I'm a firm believer, and we all got into this because we know it's for the long run. But I mean, there are big financial things into it, so things to consider. Okay, so really quick, to kind of end our evening, I'm gonna stop screen share here for a second, but we're gonna have our OMS4s that are on this call just kind of talk through these questions, real quick, a synopsis of decisions that we made and what we did with VSLO, just to give you guys perspective. And then we will stay on to kind of answer any questions or things that you guys may have. But before we go into the panel and I stop sharing, I wanted to leave you guys with this. This is actually, I know our VSLO talk is like, oh, the places you'll go. But this is a quote from the book, and I think it's very fitting because audition rotations and all of this is very scary and moves very quick. But remember that you're in medical school and you've made it this far and you'll be able to do whatever they come in front of you. It's got to be a lot of new things, a lot of first times, a lot of meeting people. So just know that you have brains in your head and your feet in your shoes, so you'll be fine. We all were. And then lastly, just a plug. We have our spring seminar coming up in Phoenix, Arizona. It's going to be really great. All of our conference chairs have done a phenomenal job working on it. I think this conference has been one of the most involved ones we've had. We have volunteering and social events. So a residency fair as well, which I know is big for 3rd years. These are the networking opportunities we're talking about. So we're going to have a lot of cool stuff. So I think going to conference 2 before your 4th year of residency was actually really beneficial on my part, because we would bring up topics and I'm like, oh, well, I was at conference and I saw this lecture about how to treat preeclampsia. And they said that this is kind of the algorithm they use. You sound so smart when you say that. So these are things to consider. But without that, I'll stop sharing. And then I will kind of have everyone go through those questions. We can get their perspectives and then we'll open it up for questions or anything you guys have at the end. But I'll throw it over to Miss Amber to start us off if you would like.
Yeah, just another plug for conference. I got a lot of my connections for audition rotations and electives, and it played a part into like my residency application as well by going to conference. So networking is very important. Knowing people will help you. So please come. So for me, I actually didn't apply to that many auditions. I knew I just wanted to do 2 and have a great, fun 4th year. So I applied to only 4. They weren't super competitive programs. So that's something to keep in mind. Like if you want to apply to like UC schools or New York, Chicago, like those are a little bit more competitive. So maybe apply to a little bit more. But I only applied to 4 and I accepted 2. I did 1 at a community hospital in my hometown and then 1 at an academic hospital out in Chicago just to get a different experience. And my best friend lives out there. So I also got to visit her. So I did 1 in my hometown here in Arizona and 1 in Chicago. And I feel like it was really good to get a balance of both community and academic because they practice very differently. I also put in the chat that I did like a rural EM elective during my 3rd year, which was probably my favorite rotation, like in all of med school. It was really great. And then I applied to 4 and the 2 that I didn't end up doing auditions with, I decided to do a different elective. So I did ultrasound and wilderness medicine with those programs so that they knew I was still interested in their program and I wanted to be involved. What else? I had to log into my VSLO because I forgot how many I applied to. It's been a long year. Other electives to apply for that are EM related that will be beneficial to you. These are just some examples, but radiology, peds EM, ICU or critical care, sports medicine, those are all electives that I applied for, and apply to as many of those as you want. If you withdraw from them, it's not a big deal because they're just electives. The overlapping dates, it just sucks. It's just how it is. Each program is going to have different dates and sometimes they overlap. Email the rotation coordinator, see if they can adjust your dates. If not, then it is what it is and you're just going to have to rearrange. I went through that and it was very stressful. I made an Excel sheet that I'm going to screen share. Let's see. And I was just coming up with different options and scenarios. And it's just very stressful. That's how it is.
Your background is so cute. Oh my God.
Oh, thank you. So I made all these mock schedules and color coded them. And it's like, I put like the rotation length, the catalog, when the application's open, submitted, dates awarded, like it's just very stressful. So I did something like this to make it a little bit more helpful.
I did
And
like
then, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I did a similar thing, but like not in Excel. Like I made like a new Google Calendar and it was just like auditions and it was like, so if I applied for like a date from like this date to this date, I would like put it in my thing for like every option, and as I got them I'd like delete them. So then I was like, it helped me too because I'm like a visual person. I'm like, okay, I have this week, like it helped me too as like when the program opened and I'm like, okay, shit, what are my dates? Because I had like one program open and they dropped their dates and I was like, oh my gosh. But I went in and I could kind of see my blanks and that helped too. But whatever way your brain works to organize it, wake up that center of that brain, because the key to this year is organization.
Yeah, and sometimes it just doesn't work in your favor and you just have to accept that. If you can't get an audition with your top program, try to do an elective with them. Send an email saying you're still really interested. And then, oh, I was gonna say one more thing. Oh, try to prioritize your top programs. Like if you know that you want to go to this program or you feel like they're going to be high on your rank list as a 4th year, prioritize those for like July through September. And what else was I gonna add? Oh, as far as my board schedule, so I ended up taking Comlex in step 2 at the end of July, and a lot of programs start doing auditions in July, but I just did mine in August and September. So my letters got uploaded in time, my slows, so I still applied with 2. So that's one way to go about it. Other people studied for boards while they were on an audition rotation. It's definitely very common as well. So it's kind of just, you know yourself best. So if you think you need more time to study and you can't be doing an audition at the same time, then maybe don't. That's what I did. I knew I wanted to get a good board score and I really had to zone in on studying. So I ended up doing my first audition first week of August. But some people start end of June or even July too. So
And
I
then
think that's
anything like you considered when you were making that like first list of programs? Was it like location? Like what was your rationale behind it?
it was mostly location. I moved back to Arizona, so I knew I wanted to do one here. I'm trying to match here, so that was a priority. And then I wanted to travel and try just like a new city, um, a different type of hospital. The one I did in Chicago was academic, and Chicago's one of my favorite cities, so that's why I chose that. And my best friend lives there too, so that was fun.
Yeah, housing, I think that's a big thing too. If people like if you have a friend in a city and you think you can get a good SLO there and something to consider, like maybe consider it.
Another thing, the program I did an audition with in Chicago, multiple people from my school have matched there. So I knew that they wrote good SLOs and good letters and that I would have a decent chance of matching there, given that they accept DOs and people from my school have matched there. So that's also something to consider.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Amber. And anyone that's like Arizona, Phoenix area, any questions or stuff, like reach out to us too if we're in your area, like we can help out with some programs and stuff. But Justin, you want to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me pull up the list of questions here. So how many did I apply to? So I may have gotten some, I don't want to say bad advice, but it's just I didn't know any better. It's the advice that my school gave me was that if you want 3 to 4 offers for auditions or electives, you should apply to 20-ish programs. And so that's what I applied to, is 20-ish. But caveat being, I'd been to several ACOEP conferences and I'd built connections with every place that I did an audition at. And so I think that more than anything helped out with my yield for auditions when it came down to it. And I'll touch on that a bit more in a second when I talk about how I made my list. Um, how many did I complete? I did 3 auditions. I felt that that was uh, a good amount for me. And then I did one that was EM adjacent. So I did June, July, August, Kaiser San Diego, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and then Maricopa or Valley Wise. Then September, when ERAS was due, I did surgical ICU rotation that I had as a 3rd-year elective. I went back and did it with the same preceptor so that I could shunt my brain power towards ERAS. And then October was a research month that my school requires for a specific program that I'm in. I did that for interviews. And then November, I did one more EM. I didn't get a SLO from it. It was just, I was curious to see what their program looked like now that they have residents, because they just started their first class. Um, and then December, I did EM adjacent in trauma critical care. And so 3 true EM auditions that I got SLOs from, and a 4th just to see what the program looked like. Um, and then timeline of my auditions with boards. So I was in a unique situation. My school would classify me as off cycle, and there can be a variety of reasons. That can be medical leave of absence. In my case, it was not. I'm a OMM fellow for my school, and so I teach on Wednesdays to our third or our first and second years, and that spans through my 3rd, 4th, and 5th year. And I know every school's different. So I actually took my boards at the end of my 3rd year clerkships, and then I was on basically a fellowship year all last year. So I did not have to worry about taking boards around the time frame that I was starting with my auditions, thankfully. Um, So if you're an off-cycle student, just know that that's not a bad thing in any way. It can actually be to your advantage if you end up taking boards sooner, because it's one less thing you have to stress about. And then, what did you consider when you made your list? So similar to what Amber mentioned, mine was location. I wanted to primarily be in the Southwest because I have family in Arizona, is where my immediate family is, and then I have extended family in California. And so I figured anywhere in the Southwest where I'm within 10 to 12 hours of driving distance of home would be ideal. That way I'm relatively close to family. And so based on where I did my auditions, California, Nevada, Arizona, I hit pretty much everywhere that I wanted to be. And I hit every type of program. That was another big consideration for me, was I wanted to experience community, county, and academic. And so I specifically planned it to where Kaiser, very community program. Then I went to UNLV, which is county academic. And then I went to Maricopa, which is pure county. And so I feel like I really got a good mixture between the three different auditions that I did, of seeing what EM looks like in each setting. And it's a very interesting experience that you guys will soon have, because I went from Kaiser, where if I wanted to get an A1C on a patient, they're like, okay, yeah, sure, to Vegas, where they're like, we don't do A1Cs here. We're county and we don't have those. And so you guys will quickly see how that impacts the care that you give at that site, and also decide for yourself, is this the setting that I want to practice in, having these resources available to me. And then the last one, any pitfalls, advice regarding VSLO, kind of like was mentioned, uh, don't hamstring yourself by just applying for one date range. This is a massive puzzle game of slotting things in and out of different places in your schedule. Sometimes it's going to line up with your school's dates that they have for a specific block. Sometimes it won't. And you kind of just got to do the best that you can to fill things in where you can. But also, like Amber said, prioritize what you're looking for. For me, I knew that staying in town was probably my top choice consideration for any program. And so that was my third audition on purpose, because I wanted to be like an A+ rock star by the time I got there. And so think about that as you're trying to structure your schedule as well. And then, of course, we're here. Reach out if you have questions, after this as well. We've all been through this process, and we're happy to help you guys kind of navigate it, because it is stressful, but it is also a shit ton of fun. I'm not gonna lie. Like, this is finally, you've been working towards this for years now, and you're finally at the spot where you're going to have this opportunity to experience what emergency medicine is. So don't stress too much about it. Enjoy every minute of it.
Not echo that more. I think auditions is like what I think of like a model, like walking New York Fashion Week. Like, it's such a stressful time, but it's all led up to this moment. Like, this is where you want to be. So like, strut it. That's all I have to say. Let's pop over to Nicole. Tell us about your VSLO journey.
Oh yeah. Since I'm like super ADD, typical EM brain, before I go into my stuff, I just wanted to mention that like if you guys are trying to enter a market where you don't have some kind of connection, like if you really want to go to Chicago but you don't have any tie to Chicago or something like that, definitely try to have some kind of audition in that area. That will carry a lot in your application, that you're like actively trying to get out there, you're showing interest in that area. So like big areas like New York, Chicago, things like that, Texas. If you don't have like an active tie to that area, I would definitely put that high on your consideration of locations for where you're going to audition. Um, with that being said, I had to look back on VSLO. I applied to a lot more than I thought I did, because I applied EM and EMIM. So I applied to, I think, 14 with EM and IM combined. But if I had just applied EM, I probably would have just applied probably to 8. Um, I ended up doing 3, all in EM. I my biggest thing with EM was honestly I used a lot of my connections from conference. A lot of places that our residents are that are on RSO are places that I auditioned. Um, Mostly because I was like, oh, cool, a connection, but also I really wanted to see community versus county versus academic. So I rotated at Emory, I rotated at EVMS, and I rotated at Corpus Christi. So I wanted to see like a huge academic center at Emory, a hybrid at EVMS, and then a one-stop shop at Corpus Christi. Um, so I think it's kind of important also to like put yourself where you want to be, but also to get yourself like seeing everything because I can honestly say that going into it, you have no idea, like I had no idea that there was such variety in EM residency programs. And so going out there and getting a taste of 3 very different places was very eye-opening. And also like really gave me a lot of insight to what I wanted that I didn't know that I wanted at the time. So like sitting down and like thinking back through all of my auditions, I was like, wow, I thought I hated this place, but now I really like a place that has X, Y, and Z after doing all of these interviews. So like I was really thankful that I got to experience all 3 different things. Um, when making my list, I largely considered where I had a place to stay and didn't have to pay for a place to stay, where I wanted to end up, and again, kind of the how I could see a variety of what EM programs looked like. Um, I would say my biggest advice, and this is going to be a little crazy, but I think I got up every morning when stuff opened and checked VSLO every morning at like 8 o'clock. Like I was like constantly looking for programs to open, seeing what would apply. You can look into programs early and make sure you have like all of the required apps. Um, I also wish I had done a like specialty audition instead of 3 fully EM rotations. Like I wish I had done like ultrasound or ICU or something just to get a little bit of variety because the other really fun, kind of not fun part of auditioning is that you are interviewing, you have to be on literally every day for a month. And I auditioned in July, August, and September. So for a full 90 days, I was having to smile so hard my cheeks hurt and just be completely on my shit for 90 days. Um, so also keep that in mind that like you are on every moment of every day when you're auditioning. And so I wish that I'd given myself maybe some grace in between them, or given myself kind of a subspecialty option where maybe I didn't have to like be on top of everything every second.
I love it. Yeah, I think my VSLO story very much echoes the things I wouldn't do, and one of them is scheduling for audition rotations. Like auditions are extremely tiring. So just understand your own kind of battery and what you're willing to do. And it's the last thing you want to do is schedule it, and then your last one's at a program you like, and then you're burnt out and you're tired, and it's hard to kind of keep pushing. But I couldn't agree with that more. I applied to 6 programs total for VSLO. I did 4 auditions. My kind of way I did it was I applied like I thought I wanted to go kind of be in Ohio. I applied like a first round of like a couple Ohio programs. I got 2 back, scheduled them. And then my boyfriend ended up matching in Michigan. So I was like, okay, we should probably look at some Michigan programs. So then I went back and applied to a couple more programs and filled in 2 spots. And I mean, I ended up doing 4, but just because I was nervous, like not having connections in Michigan. And like, I'm actually really happy I did because, I mean, I got to see another hospital, but it was very tiring. So I took my boards, end of July and immediately jumped in. Actually, no, it was like middle of July. And then I took my boards on a Saturday and started my first audition on a Monday, which would not recommend to anyone. So I really kind of set myself up for failure, kind of getting burned out pretty quick, but it went well. Everything was fine, but I had pretty much 4 audition rotations back to back to back all the way up until like I think I had a month off in October for, or September, I took a month off for VSLO, but I finished my last audition rotation end of December. So you can push them late. So if there's a program or something happens, or you know what I mean, or you audition goes bad or whatever happens, like you can still apply. Like I applied in March, was like my second round of invites. So you can also apply a little later, but that's how I did mine. I did them very much spread out across the board. So I started at a very heavy, big academic center over at Ohio State, and then popped over to a small level 2 trauma community ED outside of Detroit. So that was like a very big different experience. And it was honestly the best thing that happened during audition season, because I was like, okay, I'm seeing 2 different ways to see EM. And then I kind of did a county for my last interview. I mean, my last audition. But I did kind of 2 in Ohio, 2 in Michigan, and I didn't have any connections in Michigan. So, I mean, them seeing that SLO from that small community shop, even though it didn't end up being a program that I thought I kind of would end up at, like that SLO helped me out a lot. So I think I had 1 SLO from my Ohio State audition and then another one from my community ED. So I think that also kind of showed them too some power in my application, where I have a level 1 big academic center telling you that I think I did a good job. I mean, I got pretty good feedback on my SLO, and then I have a community center telling you I can also do a good job. So that puts more power when I'm like, I want to be at your academic center. And I know that because I've been at a community center, and you can see that through my SLO. And it also shows, like we were talking about in Michigan, I'm interested in Michigan. You've seen me audition somewhere. So if you don't audition in a place, it doesn't mean you can't get an interview or anything like that. There were a ton of programs that I didn't audition at that I got interviews out of state. So it's not the end all be all, but that was kind of how I scheduled my auditions. I did 4. I would not recommend it. I think that once you kind of hit October, November, it gets to be a lot. You get really burnt out, especially coming off of boards. Like it's a lot. So like Amber said, give yourself some grace. And schedule it that way. But pitfalls, like I said, don't do 4 auditions. Alex told me not to do it. I did it anyway, and she still laughs at my face. She's like, I told you not to. I'm like, 100% you're right. Don't do too many. Cord recommendation is 2. You'll be fine with 2. If you want to do 3, I think that's a great number, because then if maybe one of your auditions goes bad and you still need to apply somewhere, you can have 3 SLOs. And in terms of SLOs, these are things you ask for like right when you start the audition. So like if you don't need it, you don't need it. You don't have to ask for it. But my advice would be don't do 4, do 2 or 3. Stay on top of your stuff. Like I said, brush your teeth, get your coffee, check your VSLO, have everything in one place, and just have fun. Be excited about it. Communicate well, check your email, be ready to go. But like everyone else has said, this is a really fun time. And I'm excited for you guys. I think once I got through boards, everything was okay. Like it sucks, it's hard work, but you're doing what you want to be doing. So it's like happy work. But give yourself some grace, take room for breaks, be ready financially, kind of look at your finances, make those things are in order, start kind of looking at, okay, if I'm going to have to go to the city, I'm going to have to save up money for rent. And there's things online and stuff you can look on Reddit, ways to get rooms, but that's my VSLO journey. I don't have anything else really to say. I want to thank all of our 4th years for being on, and our board members for being on, and all of you guys for being on. If you have any other questions, we'll stay on for a little bit. We usually stay on and yap, but hop on the mic, throw in the chat. I'll throw in my email. I saw that other people did. So reach out, especially if you're looking in the area. I'm like Northeast Ohio, Michigan. Feel free to reach out if you have questions. And especially during audition season, reach out to your other people you know. I used a lot of other like MSU Com students as a resource. I'm not from Michigan, but they all are, and they've all done rotations. So I asked them, hey, how was this hospital? Like you can use these people as your peers. So reach out if you have any questions, but thank you guys. I'll let you hop off for the night, but I don't have anything else. And it was great to see everyone. Good luck with everything. It's going to be great. I'll throw my email in the chat, but if anyone has any questions, stay on, ask away. We've all kind of been through the ringer, so we can help in any way we can.
Good luck, everybody.
It's gonna be
Thank
great.
you.
This is the
Thank you,
best time.
Sarah. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Amber.
Fun times.
Of course.
You guys are like our little beacon of light because we're just lost in 3rd
Oh,
year.
it gets so much better. I promise.
does
It
get
gets
so much better.
good. It's so much
It gets-
better right
We're
now.
just
but it's
waiting.
so good.
The scheduling is the worst part, like the overlapping dates and trying to put in my vacation.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
awful.